This is National 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. The federal government is to intervene in the long-running Esso dispute, which has cut crude oil production in Bass Strait by almost half. Senator Peter Cook says the government will apply in the Industrial Relations Commission tomorrow to put forward a compromise proposal to Esso and the ACTU. But Esso expects to press ahead with plans for legal action against the 650 striking Victorian employees, saying consideration of a compromise settlement is a long way back down the track. A lucky escape for a 13-year-old Brisbane boy who's recovering tonight after spending 2 hours trapped in waist-deep in mud in a suburban creek. Gavin McDougall reports.
Now nursing a sprained ankle, the Brisbane teenager has recalled his struggle against a mud hole that he says felt like quicksand.
I tried to crawl out and dig around my legs, but the mud kept on closing in on me.
Sam owes his life to quick thinking by his 9-year-old sister Sarah, who raised the alarm. What followed was a 2-hour ordeal as rescue crews working against time and tides dug him free. It wasn't Sam's lucky night. Having survived the creek, he also became the victim of a rare mishap by stretcher bearers. An inquiry is underway into the police shooting of a 15-year-old boy in the Sydney suburb of Cabramatta. Police had responded to reports of a brawl. Shots were fired when the teenager, allegedly carrying a knife, refused to hand over the weapon. Even after being shot twice, witnesses claim it took several police to restrain the youth. He was taken to Liverpool Hospital, along with another man who had apparently been stabbed in the back. And Melbourne police have released the name of a 14-year-old boy, one of 2 teenagers found murdered near the Victorian-South Australian border on Thursday. He was John Ronald Lee of Adelaide. But homicide detectives are still appealing for motorists who may recognise this girl, believed to be the other victim. The couple had been hitchhiking to Melbourne when they were stabbed to death, their bodies dumped at a roadside stop. Gavin McDougall, National 9 News.
In London, more than 100 people have been arrested in a massive protest against the Thatcher government's controversial poll tax. 7,000 demonstrators marched through the city streets demanding the abolition of the new community charge. Despite a peaceful start, the protest quickly turned violent as a breakaway group clashed with police. It took the riot squad 2 hours to regain control. Several officers and protesters were injured. Australian sailors face another week of being unable to wear their uniforms in public. Although the government won't comment on the move, Canberra is concerned about possible terrorist threats. Peter Harvey with the details.
The government's taking seriously intelligence warnings that terrorists could pose a threat to Australian service personnel. That apparently is the reason for the ban on the Navy wearing uniforms in public.
It's obviously a sensitive and difficult one, and it's in nobody's desire that we have to take steps of that kind, but they have been taken out of prudence, and I think that's as much as I can usefully say.
Senator Evans also announced a $1 million-plus emergency aid grant to Cambodia. A recent upsurge of Khmer Rouge terrorism has left an estimated 150,000 people refugees from the fighting. Although the Australian government still believes the Khmer Rouge won't be able to prevent a United Nations peace plan going into operation by the end of this year.
I don't think anybody believes they're capable of actually holding major towns and cities, either militarily or, for that matter, subsequently politically.
As for the continuing crisis in the Persian Gulf, Senator Evans says Australia wants the sanctions approach pushed as far as possible. But should that fail, Australia would support a United Nations-controlled military operation against Iraq.
Oh, we'd be very supportive of that. We've said all along that if the military option is to be pursued, and it may, unfortunately, ultimately have to be, we would infinitely prefer that it was under a specific UN cover.
Peter Harvey, Canberra.
To sport, and Western Australia will play New South Wales in the final of the FAI Cup after its comfortable 9-wicket win over Queensland in Perth today. Set a target of 219, Western Australia easily scored the runs with nearly 4 overs to spare. Man of the match, Mark McPhee, remained 89 not out. Brazilian Ayrton Senna has won the World Drivers' Championship after a sensational crash put him and rival Alain Prost out of the Japanese Grand Prix. With the circuit almost impossible to pass on, it was inevitable the battle for the first corner would be desperate.
Alain Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately. This is amazing.
With only Adelaide to go, Senna's championship lead has become unbeatable. Veteran Nelson Piquet went on to take the checkered flag with his Brazilian teammate Roberto Moreno, making it a 1-2 finish for Benetton Ford. Finally, taking a look at tomorrow's weather, and fine days ahead for Brisbane and Perth, partly cloudy in Sydney and Adelaide, while Melbourne is expecting some clearing showers tomorrow, but mainly fine weather. That's all from the news desk for this evening. Till I see you again, it's good night.
This has been a National 9 News presentation.